Welcome everyone to the December 1st Ashland Conservation Commission meeting. Before we get started with our agenda items, this is a hybrid meeting, so I'm required to read some protocols for both in-person and remote. This meeting is being recorded and broadcast live by WACA-TV and live streamed on Facebook. Remote participation is available using the Zoom video conference platform. Any disruption with our video conferencing platform will result in the platform being shut down. Meetings will continue to be broadcast on WACA-TV. My name is Greg Wands, and I am the chair, and I will read now the hybrid online portion. This is the October 1st, 2025 Ashland Conservation Commission meeting, which I am calling to order at 7:03. Is that about right? Yeah. 7:03. And we have a quorum of the commission, and the meeting is being recorded. Under Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 executive order, public boards are allowed to meet remotely. This order was most recently extended until June of 2027 by Governor Healy as part of the supplemental budget bill signed in March of 2027. Of March of 2023. Please follow these procedures for attending and participating. The meeting of this Conservation Commission will be held using Zoom. As I identify the item on the agenda, the applicant for that agenda item will be given an opportunity to provide a presentation and will be allowed to share the screen to show plans, pictures, etc. At the end of the presentation, the chair will entertain questions and comments from the commission. When the commission's discussion has concluded, the chair will open up discussion from the public. Upon the hearing or meeting conclusion, a motion to continue or close the hearing will be entertained. After any discussion, the chair will call for a roll call vote. During the meeting, commission members will keep their video on and microphones muted unless speaking. Applicants and representatives, please keep video off and microphone muted until your agenda item is discussed. Public, please keep your microphone muted until recognized. If you are calling in by phone number, you can use the *9 feature to mute and unmute. If you need to share your screen, you may request permission through the chair to do so. When the discussion is open to the public, if you wish to ask a question or make a comment, you may request to speak using the raised hand feature on Zoom. If you are calling in by phone number, you can use the *9 feature to raise and lower your hand. When acknowledged to speak, please state your name and address prior to speaking. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Comments must be limited to the Wetlands Protection Act, Ashland Wetlands Protection Bylaw, or Ashland Stormwater Management Bylaw. Questions and comments not related to the Commission's jurisdiction will not be accepted. During the meeting, our host, Becca Solomon, the Ashland Conservation Commission agent, will monitor the participants for raised hands and will be recording the names and addresses of commenters. Signing of documents will occur during the week after the conclusion of the meeting. We now open up our one and only scheduled hearing. This is an off-cycle meeting. So we have notice of intent, 61 Waverly Street, map 15, parcel 12, the Gutierrez Company, DEP file number not issued. And this hearing was continued from November 17th, which was the first meeting where we had a high-level discussion of the project. And we also had a site visit on November 23rd, which 2 commission members were present. So to start this off, we can have a synopsis of the site visit from the commission and the topics that we discussed, especially focusing on the wetlands flagging.
Just for the record, Greg, the commission is joined by Mike Carter this evening from GCG.
Yes. Yeah, we have at the table Mike Carter from GCG, Civil Engineering and Land Surveying.
to the commission for the overview requested. At the last hearing on November 17th, the commission heard an overview of the proposed project and continued the hearing pending estimates for the peer review of stormwater and drainage infrastructure, as well as review under the Wetlands Protection Act and related regulations. A site visit was held on November 23rd with Bill and Carl both present. For the record, Bill is online tonight. They were both present along with myself and the applicant and the applicant's team. The west side of the wetland line was reviewed and 2 locations were identified to have sampling points. The catch basins and associated culvert in Waverly Street that are being proposed for tying into for stormwater were also looked at. The commission will discuss those observations from that site visit tonight. There was not a review of the east side of the wetlands, which is the opposite of where the work is being done. Additionally, the estimate for stormwater and drainage peer review was received from GCG, which Mike Carter, who was mentioned, is here to answer any questions on that. That is also for discussion tonight and for a vote to accept. A peer review estimate for the wetlands review from Beals and Thomas was received rather late this afternoon, evening. The commission can consider voting on this, though given it was a short time for you all to review, you could also consider tabling that review to a later meeting so that you can look over the estimate if you feel you need more time. Discussion from the public would be anticipated to be generally limited to those items unless the commission opens for additional questions beyond that.
Okay, I'd just like to add to that I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, that we agreed that this evening's meeting would be to review the scope of the peer review, and that we would leave any substantive discussion until after that had been, after the peer reviews had been done and received, which would probably be after the first of the year. Is that correct?
Yes, although we would like to talk about timing of the receipt of the peer reviews.
We put you up at the mic. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I apologize for that. Israel Lopez for the applicant. I agree with what the vice chair outlined. I would just ask that maybe we can spend a few minutes talking about timing for receipt of the peer reviews.
Sure.
But I'll let the agenda continue as it was planned, and we can circle back to that.
Well, let's just clarify first of all, because I misspoke a little bit on our site walk, because I told you that there would be a peer review by GCG, but we hadn't decided who was going to do the wetland part at that time. We decided a day or two later, and so that's why that's late getting here. And we understand if you need more time to review that.
We've actually reviewed both peer review scopes that we received. One that we just received, an hour or so before the hearing, right, and the one that we received prior to that. Mm-hmm. And I think we are generally comfortable with the peer review scopes as they were presented. We have a couple of questions just to clarify some of the scope items, but we were hoping that we could maybe talk through that, get some clarification on the scope this evening, and allow the commission to move forward with engaging both peer reviewers.
Good with that?
Okay, yeah, I think that sounds like a good plan. All right, should we open up the discussion for talking about the scope?
Yeah, do you want to start with your question?
Sure, and I'll just have Will Park, our civil engineer, come and just talk about that.
Good evening, everyone. Will Park, civil engineer at SMMA out of Cambridge. Hope everyone had a nice Thanksgiving. And thank you to the folks who joined us out in the site visit. I guess that was last weekend. So as Israel said, we are in receipt of the 2 peer review estimates and scopes of work. As Israel stated, we we understand the commission's desire to have independent peer reviews from the peer reviews that have been performed to date. We did, in reviewing the scope of the two, see a little bit of overlap and just wanted to avoid duplication of effort. For example, there were several references to reviewing for consistency through the NOI documents, consistency between the narrative and the drawings, consistency with checklists. We just would prefer that be handled by one of the peer reviewers. I think in our preference, it would be the stormwater peer reviewer who has a larger scope of work, and that's typically falls within their scope, and leave the kind of just resource area items to the wetland peer reviewer. We did submit the DEP stormwater checklist with our submission, although we didn't include the Ashland stormwater checklist. We absolutely used it as a reference in our submittal, so we are confident it is the submission is complete. So again, just to reiterate, we see a little bit of overlap in the overview of the completeness of the documents. And we also just want to state that in addition to the peer reviews that were performed through the ZBA, we have also received very thorough comments from the conservation agent, which we are reviewing. And I just want to make clear, we intend to address those, but just want to make clear we will incorporate those with the comments from the peer reviewers, and just want to make sure that no one's expecting like a supplemental in-between submission. We just want to address everything at once so it's not a moving target. And again, this might be kind of the next agenda item that was introduced, where the commission would discuss the site visit and the scopes of these, but we would appreciate to hear from the commission what specific comments or concerns you have with either the stormwater design or the wetland delineation, or impacts to the, or lack thereof, impacts to the resource areas. We feel that, this project is well designed and was peer reviewed already. So if there are specific questions, we would just like to hear those, sooner than later, so we can take those into account as we make inevitable revisions to the drawings. We just would appreciate to hear those soon so we can address them.
Do you want us to speak to that now, or do you want to continue?
Sure, yeah. My last comment was just, again, before we adjourn, would just like to understand expectations for timing of the peer reviews and the effort to incorporate comments. That was all I had, sir.
Okay. Becca, do you want to weigh in on Mr. Park's comments?
I will try to weigh in on all the ones I remembered, because I did not manage to write them all down. As far as the supplementary thing to the comments that I had provided, then expectation would be that you would provide that response in conjunction with any response to peer review as one large package.
Perfect.
So yes, that is the case there. The overlap, I think the only line item is with the NOI review. Beals and Thomas has consistency between the plans, narratives, and wetlands border reports, and GCG has the plans, the narrative, and the stormwater report. I think the intent of both of those is for GCG's looking at it just from the stormwater side of the consistency, and for Beals and Thomas from the wetlands report side of things. We could probably ask for that to be clarified if needed. Mike can probably speak better to the intention of theirs.
Yeah, our scope is only the stormwater, not the resource areas, not the delineated wetlands. We won't be looking at that.
From my perspective, Mr. Park, one of the things that we talked about in the field was the whole issue of the bedrock and the potential blasting and that impact. And it's not real clear in these peer reviews that that is going to be reviewed, except we kind of expect that to be reviewed. And if that is the case, GCG and Beals and Thomas would be reviewing that from different perspectives. One would be the impact on the stormwater, and one would be the impact on the wetland itself, or the potential impact on the wetland itself. So they would be looking at the same issue from different perspectives.
Yeah, understood. Just reviewing for consistency just through different lenses. And sorry, I mentioned as an example, I mentioned the consistency through the documents. Another specific one was review of erosion controls and consistency with the Massachusetts Erosion and Sediment Control Guidelines. That's another one where we feel that, you know, a civil engineer, stormwater peer reviewer has more of the expertise to review than a wetland scientist. I think, if I recall correctly, it came in late, as we've stated. I think that was stated in both of them as well. Sorry, I'll stop interrupting.
Okay, does any other commissioners like to weigh in?
Well, I agree that we ought to try to coordinate things so that there's no overlapping. That's not an unreasonable request.
Thank you.
Unless, for instance, it's from the same thing from two different perspectives.
To the commission, on that point, I think the intention with Beals and Thomas one is, again, just looking at the impacts of the resource area. So they might be looking at it from the perspective of wildlife movement back and forth, as there are two potential vernal pools there. And I believe on the May 2024, might have been 2023, site visit with Mass Housing, for those of us that did go out into the wetlands, we did hear and see some vernal pool species. So that would be of particular interest. But certainly from the stormwater side of things, that's probably the larger impact and would cover just about everything else.
Yeah, we acknowledge the lateness of your getting the Beals and Thomas thing. That was between the holidays and us trying to coordinate things. Just, we were lucky to get it today, but if you need more time, like I said before.
Thank you, sir. Absolutely no issue. We reviewed it as a team, and we're comfortable, and I think, as Israel stated, feel comfortable, proceeding with that scope this evening.
Okay.
Becca, do we need to talk to Beals and Thomas about refining this at all? Because, I mean, they've got, there's a review of the project compliance with the stormwater management standards and handbook. Oh, is not included, I'm sorry, okay, good. So that, I assume, would fall to GCG. Okay, good, so that's already in here, never mind. I was thinking that you would, if that were here, you'd want GCG to be doing that rather than, yeah, okay.
To the commission, to answer that question, if you did want any changes to the Beals and Thomas report, that's more than minor clarifications. It may affect the estimate cost, in which case Beals and Thomas would likely need to provide a new estimate. So you would not necessarily be able to vote to accept it because you don't know what the final cost would be. But if everybody's okay with the language as is and there's minor clarification, say just clarifying the consistency one for Beals and Thomas is just to review for impact to wetlands, and you could say the same with the erosion controls is not from a stormwater, just a wetlands review. That likely wouldn't have a large impact on the estimate costs, and you could accept it with contingent on those changes.
I don't know, see, I only read through it quickly because we got it this afternoon. So I think if the applicant, I think it's important that the applicant is comfortable with it. And if the applicant will give us the latitude of making minor changes before we accept it?
Through you, Mr. Chair, absolutely. You know, our concern really is more so, obviously, we're concerned with the cost and trying to manage costs, but we also just want to try and avoid duplication and make sure that there aren't, you know, cross paths in terms of who's reviewing what. So we're comfortable with the limits, with the cost estimates that have been provided. We're okay with the commission releasing and engaging the peer reviews on that basis. And if there are modifications that need to happen on paper after the fact, we're fine with that.
Okay. The reason I say that is because we're getting into winter, and if we don't meet again till after the first of the year, we don't know what's going to happen weather-wise between then and now. And if they can start earlier, it probably
Agreed.
would be to everyone's advantage. Certainly to your advantage, I would think.
Yes, and so that would be our, we're fine with
Okay. Okay, thank you.
minor changes to it. We did have, I don't know if, we had a couple of questions also on the wetland peer review, similar kinds of clarifications in terms of the scope. That was outlined there, and I'll just let Mark Arnold from Goddard Consulting just address those,
Okay.
if that's okay.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you.
Should be really quick. So Mark Arnold with Goddard Consulting. The point of clarification was, in Bills and Thomas, they mentioned the wetland delineation review, which the two of the members, Commisson and Becca, did go out and witness. We discussed in the field one of the flagging changes, which was connecting GC 33 to 35 and eliminating G 34. We also discussed updating DEP data sheets in two locations at G46 and G35/G36, because there was some, Becca wanted additional documentation just to confirm the delineation was accurate there. And there's, the wetland border report will obviously be updated. And we thought with Becca's thorough review of the wetland border report, whether or not Beals and Thomas needed to be looking at the wetland border report and the delineation as well. I mean, they absolutely need to look at the site, but the question of actually looking at the wetland delineation, like looking at soils and vegetational densities, is that applicable? Again, it's not a question of the cost of the scope, so we're assuming that the scope is full, and if there's less items on there, Beals Thomas may charge us less than what that amount is, and if as long as it doesn't exceed that amount, we're comfortable with that, and then hopefully the commission through Becca can clarify with Beals and Thomas that maybe the delineation does not need to be reviewed as thoroughly because the commission already went out and looked at it, and will provide the documentation to Becca, which I'm sure she'll want to review.
Any comments on?
Anyone from the commission have any comments? Bill?
Now, I wasn't on the site walk. You said there were some changes between a couple of flags. I didn't hear where they were, and you just said them, and I can't
Sorry,
read- I can't read the plan anyway, so.
Okay. There was a location where the wetland line went towards the wetland, then it came back away from the wetland. And so we were gonna connect the two lines to basically pull the wetland line back in one location between two
Okay.
flags. So it was basically straightening out a wetland line that had a finger that pointed into the wetland and came back. It was, again, GCG 33 to G35. That was the connection point. So it doesn't really impact the buffer zone at all. It just clarifies that there's that area that was it's kind of a questionable area. It's kind of high topography. It's got wetland vegetation. It's kind of an awkward situation. And so just for more clarity and just more consensus, we just wanted to connect G33 to G35.
So, in other words, you're agreeing with the change?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we're agreeing with the change, and we're going to provide the documentation that was requested in the field to document that the other two locations are accurate. And we'll update the report, which Becca gave us quite a few comments on the wetland border report. So we just wanted to know where that review stood with Beals and Thomas. I mean, if they want to look at it, they certainly could, but we're hoping that it would be more focused towards Becca than Beals and Thomas because it's still more focused on delineation than the actual performance standards.
Well, we would certainly let them know of that change
Absolutely.
before they go out there.
Yeah, the reason that we brought Beals and Thomas into that particular part is Mr. Lopez had suggested that we have a peer reviewer at our site walk, and we said we didn't think we needed one, but any discrepancies we would settle through the peer review. I don't think these are major discrepancies, but that's why we left Beals and Thomas in the peer review of the delineation, just in case there were discrepancies that they could be settled by a third party instead of the applicant or us.
At this point, besides us not providing the DEP data sheets to Becca on those two locations, are there any other discrepancies that, I don't believe there are any discrepancies that they're in debate right now, so.
Not that I remember.
Well, this is Bill. I thought there were a couple of sites that Becca had concerned about wetland vegetation being outside of the wetland line. And that was an area I think she wanted to get sort of confirmation whether it's just a transitional area or there was, the wetland line was actually a little further up.
To the commission, as clarification for that, I think that was in the 2 sampling points that we had requested. Those areas did have an abundance of royal fern, which is an obligate wetland species. That was a couple feet or more outside the wetlands delineated line in a couple areas. Soils we couldn't quite come to an agreement on in the field. So hopefully the delineation forms would provide some answer on that, but those might be ones that the commission prefers Beals and Thomas to look back over to give another review on, is at least those sampling areas. And then there was on the abutting site, which I think is 63 Waverly Street, where there is a stream that comes out of the wetlands and curves around that property and towards Waverly Street, to actually Waverly Street. There was a bordering area that the commission was uncertain if it was wetlands or not. We did find no disturb zone monuments in there. We did find not a notice of intent, an RDA for that property with the septic system replacement that did show bordering wetlands there. It did show that wetlands line extending onto 61 Waverly Street off of the stream. It looked like potentially into the lawn area. I'm not sure if GCG evaluated the lawn to see if the soils would be considered wetlands, because that can happen and they can be accepted as wetlands. But that would have to be looked at as well, because your stormwater basin does come very close to that. We would want to make sure the wetland's not extending through the lawn area too close to the stormwater.
So we did say we provide the DEP data sheets at those 2 locations that Becca noted, and we do believe there's upland soils there, so we don't have hydric soils there, which is required for it to be classified as a wetland. Even if there's wetland vegetation, you have to have hydrology as well for it to be a functional wetland. So we'll provide the data sheets, and we did offer to grab a soils color book in the field visit. That was declined, so we'll provide full documentation with the field notes and all the colors per the DEP delineation manual in the field to document all that. So, and if there is a plan floating around for a neighboring property, we'd love to see that, just to see if that's an issue. But at this point, not seeing the plan, we don't believe there's wetlands in that lawn area. And if it was an RDA, the delineation may not have been reviewed as thoroughly as in a Y, so it may have been a conservative wetland line that was flagged for the septic versus a line that was flagged for a notice of intent. So I guess at this point, I guess we can leave that item in the Beals Thomas scope for now. But I think if it's possible, just to save a few bucks, maybe we can have Beals and Thomas just know that they need to look at these 2 delineation points maybe, and then also this area near the neighboring property, just to make sure that everything is good there, since there was a lot of overlap and not full data collection by the commission in those locations. That may be appropriate, just to help. I hate to waste their time looking at something that the commission already looked at as well. So just a thought.
Everyone okay with that?
So I've got a question, Mark. My understanding from the site walk is that we requested that two additional data points for the wetland boundary be provided.
Correct.
When do you think you're going to be doing that?
Probably doing that this week.
This week?
Yeah.
If we don't get any snow.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're used to doing winter delineations, even down to like identifying ferns that are died back. So we're pretty familiar with that. And on top of that, in this situation here, soils is what's gonna matter most. So, and that doesn't get impacted by snow. It's the ground's not gonna be frozen. You can auger in the woods even.
Oh, I understand that. It's just that if the ground is covered with snow, it's really hard to get a sense of the lay of the land, so to speak. You know, even the plants that are dead, you can still ID them. If they're covered with snow, you can't see a wide area of those plants because they're all covered in snow. So you don't know where they start and stop, and, you know, it makes it, in my opinion, much more difficult, even just a little bit of snow covering the ground.
We can provide some photographs of the areas when we do the data sheet, just to show if there is snow cover, because again, there's a potential, the snow's been moving north in the last week in terms of the forecast. So if that's a concern, Gene, we can definitely photograph the areas to show that. The scientist who did do the delineation was on site during the site walk, so he's seen the area more than once.
Okay.
So he's very familiar with those locations already. So I think we're very comfortable with documenting it, but again, we'll document if there were any restrictions or inhibitions that might affect the data, but we'll do our best to make sure that we collect data when we can do it where there won't be that obstruction.
I don't know if it's a benefit or if it's even possible, but when you're out doing your data collecting, if someone from Beals and Thomas were out there to observe, you know, your soil pits and all that sort of thing, it might help. I'm not sure that we could get somebody on board that quickly. That's all I was thinking about.
If Beals and Thomas wants to come out and look at the stuff, we can definitely come out
Well,
again.
I don't know
if we
whether
have
they'd
to.
even be available.
Well, our goal will be to get the data to Becca as soon as possible, and if
Yep.
Beals and Thomas wants to go out and look at that data with us, we can go out again with them when they're available. So I don't, if, we'll work with Beals and Thomas' schedule in terms of being out there whenever they can be out there, but we may get out there earlier just to document the data
Yep.
beforehand, and to give Becca the information as soon as possible, so it's in writing. But again, if Beals and Thomas wants to look at that, we can definitely go out with them, glad to do that. They definitely have a good wetland staff there.
All right, well, we can sort of, I don't know how quickly Beals and Thomas should get on board and whether they'd even be available in the time frame we're talking about, but I'm just thinking it might be a little bit more efficient if they were able to be out there at the same time you were out there, you know, and.
Yeah, glad to accommodate whatever Beals and Thomas needs. Again, if we have to go out twice, that's fine.
Okay.
We're not worried about
All
that. We want to make sure that Beals and Thomas can do the data collection that they need to do to provide the commission the information that they're looking for.
Okay. All right.
Do you have any other issues that you want to clarify, or?
We do not. I think we just wanted to talk about timing whenever that's appropriate in terms of next hearing, receipt of the information and so forth.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we're all having the same conversation that we had in the field on record here, so that we're all heading in the same direction before we talk about timing. So we're clear that there are two different peer reviews, one for wetland, one for stormwater. We also talked about the structural integrity of the connection between the two storm drains and the culvert. Did we talk to you subsequently about how we were going to address that?
No, not to my knowledge, no.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, both Mike and Becca. But GCG was going to look at, why don't you explain it, Mike, instead of
Okay.
me saying it incorrectly?
So you're, as you know, you're tying into a catch basin at the bottom, the entrance to your subdivision. And you're making an improvement by adding a drain manhole catch basin configuration. The pipe, the question is, you know, that flows to the stone culvert or whatever it is at this point. And the question is, what is the condition of that existing pipe going to that culvert? And then what is the condition of the culvert? And then one thing that I, just in looking at the plan, I can't tell if your resource area is connected to that culvert. Does it flow there eventually? It isn't clear because you, obviously you flagged to your property line. And then the plan, that culvert is not on your plan, let's put it that way. So before anyone connects to it, the town would want to make sure that it's first functional, 100%. I have seen some photographs that the DPW has done in there, inside the culvert, looking up the pipe, going back to the catch basin. And that pipe, if you look, you can only see it about 10 feet, but it does an S-turn, it's full of stuff. So the importance of that is to figure out what the integrity is of that culvert. Sometimes the way to do it is to camera it. That may be something that we need to do so that we all feel comfortable that that is an acceptable way to discharge your drainage. Direct, because you're piping into a closed drainage system, connecting to a culvert, which is, I'm not sure if it's a resource area or not, or if that's or connected to your upper resource area. So that's something that we're going to take a look at. Does that explain it?
It does. There are limitations. Mike's not a structural engineer, is that correct?
That's correct.
So there are limitations to the inspection, but the first step is for him to observe it and then report back to us as to what his thoughts are. And then we'll have to have a discussion of if it needs to be improved or if we need to address it, how do we do that?
Yeah, and we understand that. I think that's what we talked about on the field, in the field, and we understand the commission's desire to look at that, the condition of the pipe, look at the condition of the culvert. You know, we're tying into it. I guess what we will get into ultimately is, you know, what the extent of that, you know, what that means. I think we all have a general sense that the pipe is old, that it's disjointed in some areas, that the culvert's obviously been there a very long time and you know, is probably in need of some level of repair. You know, I think the question then becomes kind of the nexus between what our project is contributing in terms of flow to that pipe and ultimately into the culvert, and, you know, the impact of our project on that system. We think it's minimal. You know, that's what our engineering analysis, I'll let the engineer talk when the time is appropriate, but we've calculated, you know, the amount of flow into that pipe to be, you know, essentially a pitcher full of water every minute or something to that effect. So we understand that it's something the commission wants to look at, but I think clearly, you know, we want to have sort of a balance between what our impact is on that piece of infrastructure and its impact on the wetlands and sort of, you know, what the condition is of the pipe.
Okay, as long as we're clear on that let's do the peer review first and then have that discussion.
Yep.
That works for you.
Understood.
I just want to make sure we had this conversation in the field again about the impact of the bedrock, both on the wetland and on the flow into the street, into Waverly Street, or the potential flow into Waverly Street, or the exacerbating the flow that's already goes to there. So that was going to be reviewed, if I remember correctly, by both GCG and Beals and Thomas from two different perspectives. So, and I know that we talked a little bit, are you planning on blasting there? Because that was
Yeah.
the last thing we talked about on
Right.
the site walk.
So again, we understand that's something the commission wants to review. We absolutely will be discussing that and talking about it during our presentation. And we'll have our geologist team come in and talk about that in detail. So we don't believe that extensive blasting, if any, will be required. There might be small areas where we can talk about whether a small blast in an area that's isolated and, a certain distance from the wetland might be more preferable than mechanically trying to remove rock. We can have that conversation with the commission, with our geologist, and talk about it. But I think it's safe to say, in conversations with them as recently as, after our site walk, that it's going to be minimal. Interestingly, we have some conditions in our ZBA comprehensive permit that are being drafted that, limit noise. And so there's a balance between mechanical removal of rock and, chiseling out some rock versus blasting. So, we're trying to balance what seem to be perhaps slightly different desires, in terms of the different peer reviews that we've heard from. So long-winded answer to your question. I apologize for that.
That's fine, as long as you realize that we're going to have that conversation.
100%.
And that you're, I
Carl,
think
can I
it's a
just-
good idea that your geotechnical consultant will be present when we have that discussion.
Did the geotech provide you with a report?
Yes.
Do we have a copy of that?
Yes.
We do. Okay.
Yes, and they did something on the order of 20 different test pits across the site, noting depth to bedrock, and you can see that overlaid on a plan, and we can sort of
Okay.
walk through that.
All right. Becca, could I get a copy of that?
I believe it is in the meeting packet from the November 17th meeting.
is.
It is the Sanborn Head, I believe, was the one that did it.
Yep.
And I believe that was limited just to the soil and bedrock. It didn't look at groundwater within the bedrock, if I'm correct. Yep, so to the commission, since that wasn't on the microphone, it stopped at refusal, so they did not evaluate any trapped water flows or groundwater that might be in the bedrock.
Okay, I didn't see it in here. I will look for it.
Okay, I have just two other quick things. We still need a dewatering plan, is that accurate?
Yes, I believe that's intended by the applicants to be part of the response to peer review as well.
Okay. And is there any reason that we don't have a DEP number yet?
I have followed up several times. I've copied back on the correspondence with DEP. I've sent them a copy of the check that has been cashed already by DEP, so it's completely on their end. But we sent it in weeks ago at this point.
Okay, thank you. And that's all I have, Greg.
Yeah, they're famous at losing checks or assigning them to the wrong project.
Yeah.
Okay, is there any other topics we'd like to cover?
You want to talk about timing eventually?
Yeah,
I would.
okay.
Whenever-
Sure, yeah,
whenever
we
the
could talk
commission-
about timing. How long do you need? And if we have to, we can schedule an off-cycle meeting if the commission's up for that.
So we were, and I was just looking at the calendar and looking at holidays and how much, the review and the scope of the review that needs to be done. But we were hoping that we could have the peer reviews back before the end of the year so that we can have, through maybe the end of the year and into the first part of January to have time to respond and maybe get back in front of the commission. I think I saw I'm not sure if it was January 5th or the 12th as the next potential hearing dates. So we're hoping, maybe no later than the 12th to be able to have peer review comments back and be back in front of the commission.
Is that a regularly scheduled meeting, or is that an?
To the commission, January 12th is your regularly scheduled meeting, your first one in January. January 5th would be the first Monday. So if you schedule to that, it would be off-cycle if you wanted to keep it separate.
I think at this point, it's good to keep it off-cycle, so that we're televised and it's just separate. We're not hurrying through something to get to something else. So that would be the 5th or after the 12th, whatever that one
Yeah,
is.
the 19th after that?
Yep, January 5th and January
Are
19th
we running
would
into
be
a holiday
off-cycle.
there in there someplace?
There's President's Day.
I think
Yeah, MLK Day, is that the 19th?
Martin Luther King Day would be the 19th. So your option would be, if you wanted to keep a Monday, January 5th would be the only off-cycle Monday that is not a holiday. Otherwise, you would have to look at other days of the week, which could put you in overlap with other boards.
We could,
Because we have to
I'm-
schedule it.
I'm not doing a peer review, so.
And we'll provide all of the prior, peer review information, Q&A from the prior one, which we've provided. So I think it'll be a very comprehensive package of information that we can put forth
Well,
tomorrow.
I'm just talking about whether GCG and Beals and Thomas have enough time to do the peer review and to get it to us. I suppose we could set it for the 5th, and if we weren't ready, we could continue, if that works for you.
Yeah.
Or we could just schedule it
Yeah.
for later than that. What's up?
Yeah. So later would be the 19th if we want to keep it.
19th is a holiday.
That's a holiday, okay.
So January 5th, I would just, for the record, in terms of timing, Mike, I don't know how early you think you would be able to get the peer review so that the applicant can determine if that's enough time for them to respond to your peer review.
So, excuse me, Tony Maas, the reviewer for our office, he's on vacation from the 22nd to January 2nd. So I've been writing these numbers down before I started. And that's, so he could have the peer review completed for me to review the Friday before that, which would be December 19th. So I could get the peer review in the day of between Christmas and the week of Christmas, roughly.
How's that work for you?
I think that would be our preference to do that. We might not have responses to 100% of everything that comes out of the peer review, but maybe we could tackle, 50% of it, 75% of it, and I think it'd be good to just kind of keep the ball rolling, so to speak.
So let's go for January 5th, and if we know ahead of time that we're just going to continue, we should have a Zoom-only meeting, otherwise do it hybrid.
Yeah, that way we can continue it with a Zoom meeting. Yeah, that works. All right, so we're sort of in agreement?
Yes.
Before we take a vote on that and schedule it, is there anything else that the commission would like to add?
Is that your only timing issue, Mr. Lopez? or-
Yes, correct me if I'm wrong. Yes, if Beals and Thomas could meet that schedule as well, that'd be great.
If
Hope
Beals
so.
and Thomas is not ready, we can still start the GCG.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot there to talk about anyway, so.
Agreed.
Okay. So it's really up to Mike's group, if that's ready.
Okay, so it looks like the 5th, and then for we continue this hearing. I will open it up to the public. If there's any comments from the public? Any hands?
To the commission, I do not see any hands raised on Zoom. And for the record, it does not appear there's any members of the public in the audience. If anybody on Zoom did have a question, please use your raise hand feature or forever hold your peace.
Okay, I'll just to clarify as well for people that may be watching on TV that aren't present at the meeting. What we're doing here is setting up 2 peer reviews for this project. One to review the wetlands, one to review the stormwater, 2 different peer reviews. We're scheduling right now, we've agreed to the scope of those peer reviews this evening. We're scheduling now, reviewing the peer reviews once we receive them, which looks like it's going to be the first week of January. And it may only be one of the peer reviews at that time, and if that's the case, then we will continue the hearing at that time. I have sometimes people watch these hearings and they have no idea what we're talking about. And
No, that was good.
Yeah,
No, it's really good, thank you.
it's good for us too. Yeah.
Okay, anything else?
Anyone, anything? Okay, I think we're good okay, do I hear a motion to continue this hearing, notice of intent, 61 Waverly Street, map 15, parcel 12, the Gutierrez Company, DEP file not yet issued, to January 5th at, we can do 7 o'clock? We'll do 7 o'clock.
So moved, Carl.
Second, Preston.
Roll call vote?
Crow, aye.
Crouch, aye.
Atkinson, aye.
Moulton, aye.
Juan's aye, and the motion passes, and we'll see you on the 5th. So thank you very much for coming in, and it's very productive. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Do you have any minutes?
Yeah.
Yes,
You
to
do.
the commission, you should have meeting minutes to review. You do have to actually review and approve them tonight because you're at your three meeting limit. Meetings have to be approved meeting minutes need to be approved within 3 months or 3 meetings, whichever comes first. So your October 20th meeting minutes are on for
Were
review.
those the minutes that said they came from Owens?
Yeah, with
Those-
Owen comments?
They were kind of messed up for me. I was gonna print them out. I couldn't do it online or on my computer, but I was gonna print it out. But it said it was 65,000 pages, so I didn't print it. I don't know why. It wasn't showing any page breaks on that document that.
Well, we're gonna
Yeah,
have
it
to
was
limit
lengthy.
these minutes if they're 65,000 pages.
Yeah, it was
So-
close to 600 lines, so it was still lengthy.
To the commission, I can confirm it was not 65,000 pages.
Well, that's what it said on my computer. I don't have Word. I have Word Pad or something, and it doesn't work the same.
Okay, well, what you're saying is we have to approve the minutes, correct?
Yes, which I will screen share the copy I have. I cannot seem to open Owen's comments, which was the copy that he had shared to us.
There were a couple things on there that were highlighted that I assume were his comments.
Yes,
Okay.
and I have not been able to open that. So I have an unedited version here. So if anybody has Owen's comments or your own comments, call out. I'm gonna scroll quickly because it is 13 pages, which is still long for you guys.
13 pages?
Can we accept Owen's comments without calling them out? Because in the printed copy, they all look good.
Yeah, if
Yeah, I
that's
would
on your
agree.
copy, you could.
Other what Owen picked out, I thought they were pretty clean minutes. All right, does everyone else agree? And Bill, did you have any corrections?
No, I had reviewed it last time and I don't think I had any corrections on it. Fortunately, I'm on a different computer, so I don't have the old one in front of me. But I don't remember having any corrections.
Okay. All right, do I hear a motion to accept the October 20th, 2025 meeting minutes as amended by Owen?
So moved. Second.
Roll call vote?
Crow, aye. Crouch, aye.
Moulton, aye.
Juan's aye. Motion passes and meeting minutes are approved. Next on the agenda, under member prerogative, we have commissioner education or various topics. Does anyone have any member prerogatives? Hearing none. That concludes our meeting. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote?
Crow, aye.
Crouch, aye.
Atkinson, aye.
Moulton, aye.
Juan's aye. Motion passes and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.